Okay, after that, can we pick up and actually focus on the individual pieces that we're going to talk about? And we're going to start with you, Steve, talking, although we did allude to it at the very beginning, about funding, and funding in particular, and the balance. And I'm struck by the statement that you made around being in Devon compared to another part of the country.
Yeah.
Can we expand upon that and understand it?
Yeah. Yeah, what I really want everyone in Devon to know is that children in Devon are worth less than children across the rest of England. And what that boils down to is a funding agreement that was reached 20 years ago by the government, which was based on different factors, sort of deprivation, underperformance, that have locked Devon in to that level for the last 25 years. And for Devon schools, such as mine, each child I have is worth £200 less than just the national average. And for a school of my size, that's worth about £60,000 a year, which is a lot of money. That I could do a lot with £60,000. And so Devon is part of something called the F40 group. So they're represented by the F40, but with all of the other counties in England that are poorly funded as well. And so we're campaigning with F40 to try to level the playing field, to get that formula re-looked at, so that Devon children are worth the same as elsewhere. So we will work in schools in Devon where we have the same expectations as, say, a child in London or maybe Wiltshire, but they all get more resources and more funding just because they're in a different postcode, and particularly around special educational needs as well. So if your child has an education and healthcare plan in Devon, we might get a top up of, say, like £1,500. But if you were in a London borough, the equivalent child gets 3,500. So where's the fairness in that? It's not right. And so more staff working in schools and more of the Devon public should rightly be kind of outraged about this. And we've asked our Devon leaders to campaign to get us more funding. And there is no strategy to do that. They've done a little bit of lobbying, but I would urge people to speak to their MP, speak to your Devon County councillors, speak to your Devon leaders to say, this isn't acceptable. Why don't we have a joined up strategy where we're all campaigning to make sure Devon children get what is equal to the rest of the country?
So the Devon dumplings come off worse as a result of it, is it, Steve?
Yeah, I don't know if I call them Devon dumplings, but
sorry.
certainly.
When I grew up in Devon, that's how it was used in a derogatory sense.
Yeah,
and we understand now why you're called the Devon dumplings, because you can float around getting less money per head than anybody else in the rest of the country. Well, and we just seem to put up with it.
We can speak politics here, can't we? You know, politically, Devon isn't seen as needing more money. You know, these decisions were made politically 25 years ago, but actually Devon people need to be aware and then use their voice. You know, if we speak to our MPs and everybody writes their MPs about this issue, then they have to take this seriously, because if they want to keep their position in Parliament, then they have to be fighting for the things that matter to us. So vote for people that are going to get the money into Devon schools. Because the consequences at the moment are drastic. We are seeing staff leaving schools and not being replaced. We are seeing staff who are being made redundant because budgets don't add up. So it's acutely worse in Devon because of our funding situation than other parts of the country. And everyone needs to be aware of that.
Okay, well, I think we need to use every medium possible to spread that message about the fact, and you referred to it as the F40 gap.
Yes, the F40 gap, yeah.
So the F40 is actually this agreement that was reached 20 years ago.
No, so the F40 is a group of 40 counties that are all in a similar situation where they are the most poorly funded.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this, go and have a look at their website, look more at the information there, and get involved. Put pressure on our leaders to make sure that we're paid. Even at the average would make a massive difference.
It's about that great political phrase, levelling up, and it's not levelled up at the moment at all.
No, and I appreciate some areas of the country will need more money, but there are other factors in the funding formula that push money to deprived areas, to schools that have greater need. Why we have this on a county by county basis doesn't really make any sense.
Can I ask all of you as teachers, when you first started teaching, did you join or become a teacher with any realization or understanding about the fact you may be involved in this debate?
No, I
No,
don't
not
think
really.
so,
No.
no.
I certainly joined education when it was being very heavily invested in, and we received lots of training, lots of resources. Children got what they needed. It was amazing. I mean, you were able to go to like a resources cupboard and get pens and pencils. They were
Yeah,
there.
it was a
Now.
different
You
world.
could find
Yeah.
some books. Now, if you have to fight for the funding. I have to ask my PTA to
Yeah.
buy me some books and get me some paper. Not readily available. It's just silly, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're in a school in the 6th richest economy in the world. Bonkers.
Yeah.
Is that why? And from the outside, is that why people see campaigns being run by schools all the time in terms of fundraising?
Yeah, and again, I think that the message I'd be giving to the public is go and speak to your schools, or just look with your eyes at what you're seeing rather than what you're hearing from the politicians. Like, how is my school having to paper over the cracks? What are they asking me for? Where are we losing out? Because schools find it really difficult to be honest with their parents.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be seen to be failing or doing a bad job. Really hard, isn't it, morally, to kind of come to terms with that? But
Are they seen to be whinging and moaning about money all the time?
Probably my school, yeah. I'm very honest with the parents at my school, but what comes with that is support. I have a PTA who are very active, and they raise an enormous amount of money every year because of that. They don't want to see their children disadvantaged, so they're taking it into their own hands, which doesn't help them, because actually it should be funded centrally. And I'm going out to trusts and organisations in the town. I managed to get over £30,000 recently from a charity to pay for some repairs on a building, because that's the only way I can get anything fixed. One, it wastes my time going out and doing that, but two, that's the function of the government to make sure we have the school estates in a good condition, not a charity. As thankful as I am to them and how brilliant they are.
Is that something that you ever anticipated that you would be doing as a teacher?
I've been a head teacher for a long time, and it's only been in the last 10 years probably that I've really had to make myself a fundraiser as well as an educator. So it's a sacrifice of my time. I should be concentrating on all the other parts of my job.
But I also remember the first time I ever saw you on television was when Southwest at 6 were in your school and filming a part of your building, which was literally falling down as you were pointing to this area in the roof and water coming in.
Well, that's the grant that I've just got. That's only just being fixed now.
So that you appeared. So I can remember, because that was years ago, wasn't it? In terms of that.
Yeah.
So
we have to fundraise every year to get work done, to buy basic resources for the children. So yeah, it doesn't need to be like that, does it? These are political decisions. When the amount of GDP that we spend on schools has gone down, that means that we are managing a decline in what we can provide to the children and to the families and to the school estates. And there's £15 billion that needs to be spent on just the school estates alone to get them back to a condition that is safe and acceptable.
So you're constantly, continuously trying to keep your ship afloat.
Yep. Just this week I've written a letter that I'm going to be sending to all the businesses in my town, asking them to sponsor the school. So that I can pay for resources and for repairs. So I'm going to be just literally saying, put your banner on this, have something in the newsletter, put something on our website so that I can afford to buy these things. Never thought that would be part of my job.
What does that make you feel like, Stephen?
It's become normal, if I'm honest. But it's frustrating because you don't know that you're going to get the money. So I get the money this year and they're going to have to do the same next year. So it's a bit kind of like tiring as well, I guess. Frustrating and tiring.
And frustrating.
Massively frustrating, yeah.
Mm.
So what does that mean in terms of the effect? If this shrinking budget is happening to you all the time, what is the knock-on effect most dramatically that happens inside of your school? Apart from, and we now know, that the buildings don't get repaired and it takes years in order to raise the money to do that reparation, because rebuilding, right, or repairing is what you're actually doing. What are the other consequences of that decision?
Yeah, the biggest repercussions are on staffing. So staffing is always the biggest part of our budget. And so it's losing staff and not being able to replace them. And that's affected me personally this term. You know, I've got a pretty decent sized school, but we couldn't afford to replace some of our teachers. So I'm teaching over half a day a week at the moment. And that's a sacrifice of my time. You know, no one backfills that time. I mean, I'm literally having to use my own time to catch up on the work that I'm missing out on.
So you're like the people who I mentioned in the break at the post office. You're having to go into your own pocket and your own resources in order to support that.
Yep, absolutely. And that's not sustainable. And that's a pattern that's going to kind of continue. And that's an example just on me, but that's happening in every single school. Every single school, someone's having to sacrifice something to make ends meet.
Is that your experience as well, Christopher?
Yes, I can give you a prime example. I always say I'm very proud of my school. I'm very proud of my staff. My staff give me an awful lot, and we trade in the truth, and I've always valued that. The staff survey that's come back, thankfully it's positive, but one of the phrases that I hadn't heard before that has come in is work creep, which is what Steve's talking about. Because when good people are leaving, it's a real decision, not should we, it's can we replace that person? And often the answer is we can't. We simply can't. We can't make the numbers add up. And then that's where work creep, I guess this phrase, is coming from. Everyone understands it. Like I say, we trade in the truth. My staff have learned that's what I came in. I came in as a head, taking on a school in a very precarious place. And it's gone from strength to strength, but it's taken a lot of hard truths on the way up about teaching and learning. The truths now are about finance, and that's not the conversation I want to be having. I want to be having conversations about teaching, about learning, about community, about aspirations. I don't want to be talking about the red and the black and the bottom line, but that's where we are. But job creep is a definite phrase that's come in, and it's like a bridge. You keep taking the legs out. At one point, it's going to drop, and the train is going to come with it. So it worries me. I work a long week. I like Steve. I ditch the jacket and pick up the pen because the expectation marches forth, and the funding retreats. And you've got this Ofsted expectation. We're seeing schools now really suffering the bite of the new Ofsted framework. It's harder to be that secure fit rather than a best fit. And the simple truth is it's because the resources aren't there anymore to meet those higher standards. The standards are running way over the hill. And like I say, the resources are retreating.
Talk to me a little bit and expand a little bit about the influence of Ofsted in school.
Well, we've only got today.
I think steer off Ofsted, stick to funding, because that's a big separate topic. I think we might conflate our messaging to the public on that.
Okay.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I think maybe keep the bit in about how that led to job creep, because I think that's a good phrase.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So can we just go a little bit more about what job creep actually means and what does it look like in a school? I hear the phrase, but let's explain it. Let's spell it out in capital letters. What does it actually mean and how would I see it? If I'm a parent, how do I see job creep?
Do you want me to talk to that with the whole, the idea of, what it's like of what parents would know that their children are now experiencing?
Right.
Does that work along that?
Whatever. I just
line?
need to understand, what does that actually mean in a school?
Yeah. Okay. So, obviously, as a district secretary, I speak to a huge number of teachers across Devon who constantly use the phrase job creep, because, like we've said, there are a number of times when it's not just redundancies that are being made, it is staff not being replaced. So you have classroom assistants not being replaced. So now you have one classroom assistant who's working across 4 classes where there used to be a classroom assistant in every class. You have a teacher not being replaced. So a class is now has now got 35 students in it, and then they've got no classroom assistant. You've got pastoral care teams that are losing their staff, and therefore you've now got one pastoral care support staff who is working across 2 or 3 year groups and having to do the amount of work that they would not used to for 3 people that used to have 3 people in it, and now it's got 1. So that is happening all the time. So the reality on the ground is that teachers are constantly papering over school staff are constantly papering over the cracks. And the terrible irony is that schools need funding, and a lot of the time, in order to get funding, they have to get the right number of pupils in their school. If their number falls, they lose more staff, and they are scared. Head teachers are scared of telling their parents that they are losing funding. They're scared to actually say, our class sizes are too big, our school doesn't have enough facilities.
Why are they scared?
Because if that would stop parents from sending their child to that school, they might lose their numbers might fall even more. So they're worried. I mean, there's this fabulous site called the Schools Cuts website where you can order a banner that goes on the front of your school to say exactly how much money your school has lost over the last few years. How if they were properly funded, this school would now have another £60,000. This school has lost £30,000 in funding over the years. Many head teachers don't want to put that up outside their school to let parents know the terrible funding situation, because they're worried that parents will say, oh, I need to send my child to a different school. My child's needs are not going to be met. So we spend our whole time in education papering over the cracks. We spend and also because we are educationists, we want these students. We went into this role because we love our jobs. We want these students to do well, and we want their lives to be better. So we paper over the cracks in so many other ways as well, because we are constantly taking on extra roles. Children get one chance at an education. That's it. You get your one chance. And now these children are in class sizes that are too big. They're in class sizes where they are no longer doing practical lessons because there are 40 in a class teaching food technology. And that class has a teacher now at the front showing them how to cook, and their students are literally making notes. So rather than them actually getting on and cooking and having a lovely practical lesson, they're watching somebody cook. Science practicals are not happening because
Is that simply because of funding?
That's because of funding. That's because class sizes are too big. You know, the curriculum is narrowing.
Talk to me about all of you, and feel free to contribute about, because I hear this now and it troubles me, is about competition. About the competition between your school and another school, and their parents can just move or change their children around, and the competition. How has that come about?
Oh, gosh.
That's because we exist in a very high stakes education system where we have a very punitive inspection framework that is not supportive of schools. It just creates competition between them because you get graded, and it's very public. not really any system of judging professionals exist in any other profession. So it's very dangerous, and the public needs to be aware that head teachers have taken their lives as a result of Ofsted inspections. That's
We said we were
how
going to
staked they
conflate
are.
a message, but actually,
Yeah,
I
I
think
know.
it pervades
God.
everything. Steve, I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. And you've just mentioned what, to me, if we talk at an emotive level, we're talking about a process and a system where, as a net result of it, a teacher committed suicide.
Yeah,
And-
at least one head teacher, probably up to 10, have been attributed to Ofsted inspections. And then you have the funding that Camilla refers to. I mean, every head teacher is petrified. You get towards census day, you need children in your school to balance your budget. So you want to work in collaboration with the schools around you, but actually you're in dire competition with them. You're desperate for pupils. So it's you know, it's a silly situation to be in. Why I don't really know where that started. I think it's always been the case.
Worse now, isn't it? Because there's less money.
Because there's less money. Yeah.
So
I don't know
and
that actually.
fewer children. There's fewer children because birth rates are lower as well. So people are really scrabbling around to get children into their schools.
So we take this little pawn that we've now moved about, who is now worth, because they exist in Devon, and they are in competition to get more of them into their school so that they increase their budget in order that they can provide the level of education that they aspire to. What a horrible model to exist with. I mean, we talked about earlier about apprenticeships. Now we're talking about being in competition. And we've set a perfect storm in process by now having, as described by Steve, a punitive inspection system which sets one against another and actually will publicly put up, because the only banners that I see outside of school are people shouting about what their score was at their last Ofsted inspection. I don't see banners talking about the fact we don't have any money to repair the toilets, a lot of which are broken. I don't see any of those at all. I don't see it. But I would, as a parent, be utterly horrified. Right? And I've spent a lot of time subsequent to leaving teaching, going into various businesses, realizing that somehow those things that happen behind the scenes are not as good as people think they are.
Yeah. The decisions we're making as head teachers is really like, what's the best way we can lose? I think that's a Christopher phrase, I think. But it is, isn't it? It's kind of like, we're not going to get the money that we need. We're going to get all these pressures put on us. So we've got to make some difficult decisions here about how we do things.
Yeah, but families are doing that now by not eating, for example, or missing a meal, or actually the level of deprivation when you experience it and see and witness that level of deprivation, the sacrifices they have to make are incredible.
Well, that was another thing I wanted to actually a point to make today, either now or in the next section. So the children in our schools are really unhappy. Not because we're not fantastic schools doing a great job. And speaking really kind of like generally here, compared internationally, our children have poor happiness, poor mental health, poor life satisfaction, and 30% of them live in poverty. Like, do the public really understand that we have a system that's creating, or a society that's creating unhappy children? So it makes it even more important to invest in schools and have staff that are well supported to be able to improve children's happiness, mental health, well-being, get them out of poverty. Nearly 1 in 3 children in our schools is in poverty.
Yeah.
Horrific.
That's a staggering number.
It is. And schools are incredible at trying to help those students that are in poverty. You know, we have breakfast clubs, we have uniform, we have we give out food parcels in our schools for families. But there's a limit to how much we can do. But it just shows how much schools really care, isn't it? We constantly are helping those families and those young people.
Yeah.
Can I dwell for a moment? Because I want to understand from you the impact that level of poverty has upon the learning and the learning rate of those particular children. because you experienced this. I certainly did when I was teaching. Are you experiencing that and witnessing whereby because children haven't eaten properly, they don't have the right clothes necessarily to wear, or they're not like everybody else, and they know that they don't have stuff, how they suffer socially and also mentally.
Yeah. Well, like you've just said, it's twofold, isn't it? Like, who can do a job if you haven't eaten and you don't have the right equipment and the right clothes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the first point. And then you have to have the indignity and the shame of knowing that you're in that situation. So we know, I think we're very subtle in schools at providing those things as best we can for those children, but they still know that they're being disadvantaged. And, you know, more food banks than cinemas in our country. So they're going to collect their dinner from the food banks as well. It's just traumatizing for them.
Where did it all go wrong? And how has it gone so wrong? I know that I don't really mean that you're going to answer that question, but when we look at it, and I'm just imagining those kind of situations, because I think although we try at an intellectual level to imagine what that is like, very few of us in this room have ever experienced that level of poverty or deprivation, or actually being deprived of those things that those kids are experiencing every single day.
Yeah, and we probably don't need to get political in this debate, but the uncomfortable truth is it's just down to where the money is distributed. Just distribution of money in our economy since the neoliberal policies of the 80s, of course, this huge change in how our money finds its way to the richest people and away from the poorest. It's Victorian times that we're living through again.
We know there's money. We know there's money in our society, but it's a political choice, isn't it, of where the money goes?
I guess so. You know. But also, what I see, and my has tended to focus upon simple things like, you know, I love the whole idea about what do you want me to do? Do you want me to help you? Do you want me to hug you? Do you want me to help you? Do you want me to hug you? Yeah. Or the other one, do you want me to hear you? Yeah. And if I take those three things, one, they're not being heard, and secondly, nobody's hugging them and nobody's looking after them. The emotional support just doesn't exist in lots of situations, and yet that deprivation pervades that population and those children. They come to school in that particular state. And those three things are critical to their development, their physiological development, and also their mental development as well.
Schools are havens for those children.
Correct.
They get all of those things in school. And that's why I think if people just took a step back and thought what an amazing job schools do around just educating children, I think that schools would get more respect.
I love the phrase, they're havens. Schools are havens. But the havens in Devon aren't as well off as they are in other parts of the country.
No.
And they're not very well off in other parts of the country either, let's be honest, in schools. I mean, it's a nationwide issue, isn't it? School funding.
Yeah.
I think what my colleagues have done as well is sort of like given a spotlight into schools, allowed people that have a misconception of what they are. And there's just a teacher standing up at a board or whiteboard and teaching. And the fact of the matter is, as we've said, funding has stopped for parents as well. Sure Start used to help families. There is more being put onto schools to help. So where you're saying about the listening ear, you know, teachers are giving up their lunchtimes to listen to the students, to go the extra mile, provide homework clubs, extra support. Students depend a lot on their teachers for when something bad has happened at school, and they need to be reassured that everything is right. And the first thing that students do is talk to their tutors when they're hearing about the Iran war or the hanker virus for reassurance that everything is all right. Maybe won't always be all right, but there are people there that are going to provide consistency, and that all comes down to funding, because that's being taken away. The people that are the sort of like first aiders that are there to help them are slowly being taken away because the funding isn't there to help them. and support them.
Okay, what does that actually mean to teachers on a day-by-day basis? Perhaps, Caroline, you can speak to how does that feel to teachers? What does it do, that attritional kind of association with school?
Well, I think if I'm talking and with my colleagues, we didn't go into teaching, despite some people thinking that it was for the holidays or it was for the pay. It's because we have a passion. And I know that basically it was like a couple of teachers within my school that recognised my potential, even when I didn't recognise it myself, and really believed in me. And it's an ethos that I've always carried on, that I love my subject. I love the people that I work with that go over and above what they need to do, right? Because they care about education, they care about the students, and they want to support the community and parents. So for me, I'm seeing that we're actually losing the heart of our schools, that it's not just about recruitment, as we mentioned before, it's about retaining those teachers. And burnout is now the norm, and it used to be the exception. As I said before, teachers are working some of the longest hours in Europe. They are having to juggle rising pupil needs. They're having to cope with excessive admin, behaviour challenges, and constant scrutiny. And all of this is happening in a and they're having to face a real terms pay cut in the last decade. Something needs to be done with. That's why we're here to sort of like raise this, and a great deal of this is about the funding. So
can I empathise with what it is you're saying by saying to you, it's a very dangerous road to go down, because I remember a kid turning around to me and saying to me, "Sir, you've got no idea how I feel."
Yeah.
And I've never used that phrase since. So I'm not suggesting that I understand how you feel. But I would come back to you and say, I do remember, and I remember it happening for 4 or 5 days in a row, driving home, sitting in my car, feeling as though I'd driven into a cul-de-sac and I was just going round and round and round. There was no escape. I couldn't find a way out of this, going round and round. And it pervaded every waking minute of my day. It pervaded my home, my family, how I spoke to people, how I dealt with Jenny, my wife, how I coped with situations, and it was there all the time. But instead of actually owning up to it and talking to somebody else, it appeared to me, it felt like a weakness, but it wasn't what I signed up to do at all, but it did feel at the time like a weakness. I think it's really hard to sometimes climb in and understand that kind of mind. And I'm looking now at this current situation which we've been describing, and the current mindset of those people who are involved in teaching every single day. And we haven't spoken about it yet, but we need to speak about it in a bit more detail, is now the new funding of SEND reforms. And it's not just about the funding, it's about how are we going to support those people who are disadvantaged in so many ways. What are we actually going to do, and how are we going to do this? And we can raise questions, but what are the answers to some of these questions? How we move forward. And I think when I talk and I listen to you talking as a current teacher, teaching a subject which I used to love as well, and involved in a subject that I used to love as well, I find it really, really hard to find, what am I going to say to those people? It'll get better. It'll be all right. It won't be. It's not getting any better. It's actually going to get worse. Or it is getting worse.
Yeah, I think in the next section we should talk about this. Like, we're moving to a normal. Do we really a new normal? Is that what we really want? What does that really look like? Do you want to do Christopher's bit on the 0.5%?
Yes, sure.
Because how much longer have we got in this session?
We've got only about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because then, I reckon if Christopher does his Devon and then the SEN bit, and then we can plan the next section.
The
Does that sound
call.
right?
Okay, fine.
I think, call to action is
Yeah.
really important as well. We
Yes.
need a bit of a,
Yep.
yeah.
I think we're at
Around
that
that.
point. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, Chris, can you talk to me about the 0.5%, which I didn't understand anyway? What does that actually mean?
So in basic terms, we have the general school block of money that's there to support all children. And then there's the high needs block, which you can understand is there to support children with higher needs. In Devon, and it happens in other places, but this is Devon specific, there was it's a 0.5% transfer from the schools block of funds of 0.5% to the high needs block. So that money went from every school, every child, into the block that supports that additional need. That 0.5 transfer went into, sorry, we have to do that again.
I reckon start with the SCN overspend first.
Yeah.
Just say how that's got out of control. Like you said, like not just Devon, but everywhere, but particularly bad in Devon.
Yeah.
I think you're
So
doing it
no.
really well. I wouldn't want to have to try and explain this.
No.
I'm trying to couch
Very
it in
helpful.
people
I'm
like
finding
if-
it really useful.
If Martin's not,
Just to,
I think
a
start
lay
with
in
like the
terms of-
public need to know first of all, Devon SCN overspend first of all, and then we're being asked to pay it back when we don't want to
and the safety valve.
because it's
That's
gonna,
it's really
Yeah.
useful.
Okay.
But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
sorry, Martin,
Layman's
we
terms.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I really, kind of, the better
It's
and the
not-
more we talk about
It
it,
sounds
the
simple,
better.
but it's really
It's
not.
really not.
I
It's
can,
really
I can
complicated.
understand it's
I think the
complicated.
question is, tell me about Devon's problems with its SEN funding.
Tell me about the problems with SEN funding then.
So, SEND funding or special educational needs and disability funding is a problem for our nation, but particularly it's acute in Devon. The deficit or the debt run up in Devon is multi millions. It's crept and grown and it's snowballed in the last years in excess of £100 million. Actions have been put in to redress that across the nation, and Devon as a county entered into what was known as the safety valve agreement. This was taking pressure off and the debt moving off the Devon County Council main budget into, if you like, a separate pot and a silo, so that was to be dealt with by the safety valve so that the council could function, practical and sensible. Within that, every year, it's put to members a request to move 0.5 of the schools block funding, general schools block funding, into the high needs block. Most years that has been contested bar one. That 0.5 has been put across and it amounts to millions of pounds. Particularly now, that money has been moved across, yet central government has agreed to, in essence, wipe 90% of the debt that is in the safety valve. So that safety valve agreement, in essence, has ceased. But there's a real sharp point here of contention in the fact that that's 0.5, those millions have moved this year, knowing that that debt was going to be wiped. And actually, those millions rightfully should go back into Devon schools because that debt's wiped. And although there is latent debt, there is still debt there. We talked about money and morality. Perhaps the moral question is, should that have been asked if we knew the debt was going to be wiped? And now that the debt has been wiped, should that 0.5, which I think amounts to over £3 million, should that come back? Personally, I don't think that should be a question. I think that should just be a given. I think there has been talk of it's difficult to work it back through the system because where the money has gone. I don't think that should be a difficulty. I think it should be quite simple. It went out through a mechanism. It should be able to return through the same mechanism. But what we're looking for here is send across the country. It has exploded and expanded. And the need is growing exponentially. The funding absolutely isn't. The white paper is going to press for more inclusion, and rightly so. And actually, in parts, it's really well written to do that. But that's going to take resource, and it's going to take investment, and it's going to take all the people that are walking out the door either to come back in or to actually stay. But the funding is not there, and actually we need to fight for every part. And the 0.5 is a real example of a real opportunity to show some clear leadership within Devon to move that money back.
So let me try and put it in my very, very simple kind of now layman terms rather than being as close to it as you are. Okay, so here's a chunk of money which I'm giving you, right? I'm giving you as your support to actually run and function as a head teacher within a school. But I'm going to take some of that off the top of that to support a centralised fund to deal with special educational needs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay. So it's about, I'm giving you this cake and I'm taking the cream off the top and putting it in a particular bucket ready to support special educational needs.
Yeah, I'd almost cut the cake a different way. So if you go with this is our cake, and at the minute the cake is in our school and we're feeding our children from this cake.
Okay.
What I'm being asked to do is cut a slice of cake and give it to
The DFE.
who? Because I can cut that cake and I can watch those children in my care eat that cake and be nourished by it there and then. What I'm being asked to is take from spending in a place of certainty where I can actually see the physical results day in, day out. That person is being funded by this money, who is working with that child or young person, and and being their safe person and providing a haven and keeping them in education and not being electively home educated. I'm being asked to withdraw that money that potentially is paying for that person and put it into a centralized pot with no guarantee outcomes that are becoming anywhere near my own children or where it's being spent in the county on other children. And I'm going from certainty to mystery. And I'm
so
not
basically
sure
your message to the parents at the moment is, right, we have this cake, but your child is going to get a thinner slice of this cake because some of the cake is being taken and actually used in a central fund to support special educational needs.
that's in essence the situation. And
But-
what we're saying is it's not that we think the people taking the slice have ill intentions. It's we're not clear that they know what their intentions are. We're not sure that they've got systems and structures to spend that well, when actually schools are audited, schools are well run, well led, and we can see that money day in, day out making a difference through those adults with those young people.
Yeah.
We've
But
gone
that-
from certainty to mystery.
And it feels very punitive because we are already under huge funding strain. So we all need that money in our schools.
But that slice that they are reducing, or the piece of cake that they're taking from your school, actually as an issue is growing and growing and growing. That need is ever more demanding, right? The number of children who now require support through special educational needs
That
is not
is rising.
diminishing,
No.
it's getting greater,
It is,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that a function, or is that a byproduct of the society that we're living in, or the level of deprivation that there is? Why is that getting worse?
That's not an easy one to answer either. That's many people have tried to work that out and have not really got anywhere. I think fundamentally our society has changed. We're better at identifying special educational
Yeah.
needs. Our curriculum is a lot harder. So it means that if you find school tricky, you're going to stick out more. And children come to school with greater needs, I think, because of the effects of screen time and mental health issues that they have.
Yeah.
And if a third of children living in poverty, lots of diagnoses that children get are overshadowed by actually trauma that they've suffered. So it's a very complicated situation. Well, one thing is certain is that children aren't different. Children are the same now than they were 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So it is an indicator of what's going on in society.
And it's
Okay,
about
but-
providing equity. So the children aren't the problem.
No.
It's the taking away of this funding from the schools that know their children well, that have the staff in there to support them, but it's having a detrimental effect. It's about how can we prevent this, because it won't be just this year. It's due for another 2 years in which we need to sort of like gain support that it won't be taken away from school budgets.
I'm trying to imagine now in this haven, and really I love the phrase in a haven, you're now going to have much less cake.
Yeah. And the reality is, I know schools who literally, had they had that money back from Devon County Council, had they had that money back, they would have been able to save jobs.
Okay.
They have made redundancies as a direct result of that money being not given back to them.
Okay, so it's highly, highly emotive at so many different levels, isn't it? And I understand that. And I understand the kind of pressure that's around it. I think what we're going to do is we'll just wrap up this particular session. I mean, gosh, you've covered so much ground within the period that you've been in. You really have. But it's not difficult for me to sit here and begin to unearth and understand some of the problems and some of the issues and but what are some of the solutions that we can actually offer? Because I do think we need to find some ways out of this situation. I mean, you've had to be highly creative. You've had to be resourceful in the way that you've tried to find different solutions. But what are the solutions moving forward? Because I can see an imminent disaster. It sounds like to me like a social disaster.
It's a managed decline. That's what we're in. We're managing a decline of our education system and our society. And it's not just in schools. You can see it, like I think you were saying earlier, Camilla, in the roads, in the NHS.
Yeah.
If you talk to people on the high street, all they'll ever talk about is the diminishing number of shops on the high street, the state of the potholes or whatever else.
We need to open our eyes, don't we?
It may be kind of going, bit by bit, it's getting worse and worse every single day. And people are beginning to feel that. But I have to somehow actually offer, and it is highly, highly political. It couldn't be more political. But what can the messaging be that we offer hope? Because in those havens that you have to keep, if nothing else, that hope alive in that spirit that you're actually doing and how you're doing things within your schools on a day-by-day basis. And one of the things you can't do, and we've talked about it several times during the course of this conversation, we can't share it because there's almost a shame that goes with sharing it and a panic that would almost result if people began to realise just how bad it has become.
I mean, I think it's time for everybody to be sharing this.
Yeah,
I think it's time for people to be talking about this. I think it's time for parents to be standing up for their own children's education. I'm part of the National Education Union, and I believe very strongly in working together, all of us working together. And, you know, we will be balloting in October. We will be balloting our members again and asking them if they want to stand up for education. And they will, a number of members will be balloting with us and they will be voting for action. There are also a number of teachers out there who are working so hard that they forget that they can come up and they can talk to their head teachers. Their head teachers can talk to the parents can contact members of parliament. But we all need to be speaking up now. We need to be fighting for this because, like we've all been saying, it's reached a crisis point. It really has.
So what is the cost to those teachers on a day-by-day basis?
As in,
what is the effect of that happening, that environment, that atmosphere of feeling that sort of pressure?
Well, our casework is rising. You've got an increase in sickness, long-term sickness, but which is then having an impact on families. There's all people being put on capability plans. More people are leaving. And I think, what can we do? Again, like Camilla was saying, some people say, but they don't understand the funding that goes into it. So with the NASUWT, we're actually asking for accountability. So with CEOs' pay, where has the money gone? And just looking at those who have being paid a significant amount of sum in comparison to others and being accountable for that. those are some of the issues we've been asking our own members within schools with a template to write to Devon County Council to raise awareness about seeing if there's any possibility for that money to come back, but also to prevent it going out from budgets next year. I think typical costs are about 81,000 a school has to provide back over to the 0.5 dedelegation. So there are a lot of ways that people can support us in raising this issue.
I think it's incredibly important to remember as well that any teacher who is prepared to go out on strike for in this strike would be going out to save education. They're not going out because they think they need more money. They do need more money, but that's not their key priority. Their key priority is that every day on the ground they see the effects of lack of funding in their schools.
Yeah.
If we go back
they
to
want
what
to
I
save
used before,
education.
where Steve turned around to me and said, well, that's the kind of haven that we create.
Mm.
How do they get heard is the most important thing for me. Are they being heard?
I don't think enough teachers are speaking up about this and being honest, which is why we're here to do that.
Yep.
I don't think enough parents are speaking up and making decisions. Christopher and I work with a lot of leaders who don't have an ambition to improve things. Their job is to manage the decline. So we can either settle for that, or we can all speak up and ask for something better.
Yeah.
Yep. And also parents see that their children are in a class of 40. They sometimes their children come home from a whole day at school and they've had 3 hours of their schooling in a class of 90 in a hall, because schools can't afford proper cover teachers anymore.
Yeah.
But those parents are blaming the school.
Yeah.
And actually what they need to be doing is they need to be saying the government need
we
to give
expect more.
schools more money.
Yep.
That is the be all and end all.
Yep.
Schools need money.
I think on the note of we expect and we need to be able now to demand more, I think we should kind of finish and go into this final sort of session. I think you covered, thanks for the help over the cake bit. That really helps and
Yeah, but
keeps
actually
it
that was really,
strong
really
for me.
useful.
That was strong, very
Yeah.
powerful.